It's a health-focused show, and today we're talking about the B game, or up next we're talking about the B game. Now, this is based on a true story. It's inspired by a true story. The writer is Beverley Wilson, and it's her story about her battle with cancer, which she discovered at the age of just 13. She had a chance meeting with Adrian Scott, who is also a writer. Has written for films which have featured recently in the cinemas, and he really moved by her story, wanted to ensure that it came out. And so Adrian Scott joins me in the studio, and Bev joins me on the phone line. Good morning to both of you. Welcome to Colourful.
Good morning.
Hello, morning.
Hello, good morning, Bev. So thank you so much for joining us on Colourful today.
That's okay.
Thanks.
And Bev, you're joining us on the phone line, and this is your story. And so I really want to come to you first, and really just find out about your experiences, really with cancer initially, because it's your experience with cancer which has driven the B game to come out, or to be in the process of being made. So. Let's start off by perhaps telling us about how you and Adrian met. So you can both tell me about that, because I understand it's a chance encounter, wasn't it?
It is, yeah. Hello, Adrian in London. We kind of met in Starbucks. It was a bit of a weird meeting, though, because we both have young children. And Adrian's young boy was kind of having a little wrestle with my young boy, which is completely useless at wrestling. And I just told Adrian it was all right, that I wanted my son to kind of toughen up a bit. And that's just how we got talking, really.
Yeah, it's a true story.
So, Adrian, you were saying, who was winning the wrestling, Adrian?
My son, but he takes after me. So, my son was kind of wrestling this poor little kid. And I was like, no, Che, you got my youngest is called Che. So you got to stop. And then there was this Newcastle voice that said, no, it's okay. Let him wrestle my son.
This Newcastle
Yeah, my son's like me. He doesn't wrestle at all.
And so tell me, because that's in the here and now, that's quite an Olympic-themed story, I would say, in as much as you guys started talking quite randomly. And that seems to be happening all across London. I don't know if it's been happening in Newcastle, Bev, but in London, people are talking to strangers, aren't they?
Yeah. To be honest, go ahead, Adrian.
It's about time. It probably happens in Newcastle more than it does in London, because, you know us Londoners are like, we're a bit standoffish. But I don't know, Bev, what do you think in Newcastle?
Yeah, I think, people do tend to chat randomly to people in Newcastle, so it was quite surprising when I was in Starbucks and we just got chatting, and I had chatted to a few of the other parents, but nothing really to the extent that me and Adrian did. We just, I think it was Monday and Friday or something, I would be there with my children and he would be with his, and we just used to sit and chat about his work and about what I was doing. So that's really how it started, and I think it was quite cool that in the London busy kind of atmosphere, we took the time just to chat about each other's work.
And so in doing so, you were letting Adrian know then about quite a personal experience that you have had. At the age of just 13, you were diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, well, because we had met a few times over a couple of months, just randomly in Starbucks. I kind of felt comfortable enough, because Adrian's a lovely character, as you can probably tell, to tell him about my story. And I was diagnosed at the age of just 13, like you say. And at 13, I'm talking about 1997, maybe. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't really understand what cancer was. I mean, to me, I think I just thought old people got cancer and that not very many people lived through cancer. Mm-hmm. So I was totally unaware that teenagers and young babies, even as I experienced, got cancer. So when I found out, it was pretty much a subject I didn't know much about, and I didn't cry. My mum told me she got off the telephone. She was told via phone, which probably wouldn't happen now anyway, that I had cancer and that they were going to start treatment. And when she told me, it was just kind of okay. And then I think it was later on when you're on your own and you have your time to think about it at 13, I think it wasn't the case of, I never thought I was going to die. It was just the case of not knowing what it was. I had something that I had not a clue about. Yeah. And I think that was the scariest thing, is just not knowing what was going to happen.
Bev, if you could, what was your experience then at the age of 13? So you said you didn't really know what cancer was. It was quite, you knew that you were ill, but you didn't really know the seriousness of your illness. So at the age of 13, how did you become aware of your symptoms? When did you really realise that something was up and that you decided to go along to the doctors?
Quite scary, actually, because I had a pain in my right leg, and that's where my first tumour was, in my right fibula. And that's primarily where teenagers get bone cancer, because it's related with growth. But yeah, I just had pains in my leg at school, and it wasn't constant. And all I really wanted was a bandage on my leg so people could sign it. So I think I kind of over-exaggerated the pain slightly. But as it progressed, the months went by, it did start to get more painful. And after an X-ray, they did find out that the tumour had fractured my bone, which is the reason why it got very painful near the end. But it was just a case of going to the doctors and expressing this. And at the time, they just kind of sent me away with bandages or cream or like ibuprofen cream to take away the pain. It wasn't until my mum requested to see a different doctor that he sent me straight for an X-ray because he had concerns. And that's where it started, really. They took a biopsy of the mass or the lump that they said was there at the time. And then after the biopsy, they just made a phone call to my mum to say it was cancerous and I needed to start chemotherapy. So it was all just a bit of a whirlwind once I got sent for an X-ray. But it was just...
Do you think that being just 13 then, do you think you were taken seriously? Because actually it sounds like it did happen, it did move quite quickly eventually once the diagnosis, or the bone mass had actually been tested. But prior to that point, do you think as a 13-year-old, and now you can look back at it as an adult, do you think that you were taken seriously by the medical profession?
No, I would say I wasn't at the beginning because, like I say, they were just putting it down to growing pains, or maybe because I was doing trampolining at school, that I just had an injury. My sister was 6 at the time, and I think it was about 2 years later, she started getting pains in her legs. And automatically they took that seriously because of me having a tumour before. And everything was fine with her, which is thankful. But it takes a little bit push in GP practices these days. So I think not only does the awareness need to be with people, but also with GPs, just to maybe treat patients, young or old, a little bit more careful, I think. I think you should presume the worst and then work your way down rather than presuming the least and working your way up. Because ideally, I mean, I had that tumour for 3 or 4 months before it was even found.
Right.
And for there was 3 or 4 months, I was complaining about it.
I mean, clearly this is a moving story nonetheless. And so for me, hearing about it, I kind of want to empathise with you, and I completely hear what you're saying about not being taken seriously at that young age. Adrian, for you as a writer, what was it then that moved you to the point where not only were you hearing about the story, but you felt that other people needed to hear it too?
Well, it was really weird because the way Beverley introduced me to her plight and what she'd been through was by showing me books. She found out that I wrote, and she said she writes books. So one day in Starbucks in Chiswick, she showed me an extract of a book that she'd started writing, and I hope she continues to write. I'm going to make sure she writes that book because it's going to be it's an amazing story, as you can tell. And when I read the extract from this book, it wasn't quite linear, and it was like just random thoughts. There was structure to it, but the main thing I got from it was that it was talking about this terrible disease. And reading this book, this extract from Beverley's book that she'd written over many years, and it was just a chapter, the word cancer was in there. And I looked at this woman before me and read back the book, and I was like, I wonder if this is true, if this is just a story. She didn't actually ever say to me, yeah, this is my story and I've had cancer. It was about cancer, but I didn't connect at first because it's not every day. Well, it is every day. You do meet people that suffer with cancer, but you don't kind of expect them. I don't know if that's my ignorance, to be right in front of you. You're sitting next to them. And when I said, is this your story? Is this actually you? She said, yeah, I had cancer. Beverley had cancer twice. She bravely fought cancer twice. So that was my introduction to it. And I couldn't believe this was real. And then when she pitched the story to me being an inquisitive person and being a writer, she pitched the story to me, and I was like, wow, that was the most moving thing I've ever heard, and that it was a true story. I'm listening as an outsider, but she lived that, and that was pretty amazing. I thought, and she told me she'd already started writing it, and she tried to do it a few years ago. But I said, look, this is what I do. I think we should just write it. But it took us a good 5 months before we actually did. But the process had begun at that point.
Yeah, and so. Bev, Adrian mentioned then that your cancer actually recurred, didn't it? I believe it was in your lung. In your lung,
it did,
was it?
Yeah, I had secondary in my lung because I had osteogenic sarcoma, which is a name of a bone tumour. And when that returns, it returns to the nearest place of oxygen.
Right.
So I had regular chest x-rays to make sure my chest was clear. And 2 years later, I complained of pains in my chest again. They did do an x-ray, but there was nothing there. But what was peculiar about my secondary tumour was that they would ordinarily expect it to grow in balls in your lungs, and mine had grew as a sheet of paper on the top of my lung, so you couldn't quite see it until it was thick enough to see. So it wasn't again for another 3 months after complaining that they found out I had secondary.
What age were you at this point, Bev?
I was 16.
16. So at 13 and at 16, you had these two life-changing diagnoses. And were you meeting other children of your age who were also going through a similar thing when you were having treatment? I believe you had chemotherapy, right?
Yeah. The first time I was diagnosed, I was actually in just a normal children's ward on the RVA, which is where you're mixed with babies and adults, as in like 30 plus. And at the age of 13, it was really difficult to kind of socialize with anybody. And this is what the whole animation is about, the whole mental process to curing cancer rather than the treatment. So when I was diagnosed the second time, I was actually on a teenage cancer trust ward, which is they build wards specifically for teenagers and for teenagers to kind of mingle with other teenagers and talk about their cancer. And there's a website called Jimmy Teens where you can actually kind of go on its kind of chat forum, and it's kind of just opening up the kind of word cancer that people are so scared of. And so unsure about, kind of opening it up and saying, well, it can fit into society today. Like you have Facebook and everything. We have a chat for that too. So it's kind of bringing the whole, if you like, in abbreviated commas, hipness to suffering from cancer. And I think that's what the animation looks at, the whole mind, positive mind towards cancer. And I mean, the inspiration for the actual animation was through me building bombs in my head and sending them down to my tumour, and then imagining the tumour exploding out of my leg. I know it sounds really silly, but it brought a positive mind to my head. So for the rest of the day, I was quite comfortable in thinking I had tried to get rid of it myself, as well as just lying back and just allowing treatment to try and kill it. And
Bev, I just want to pick up on that actually, because I've been reading your story, because it's on the Mellow Line website, which is Adrian's website. And I know that you talked about the fact that your auntie was able to, because she wasn't your mum, her approach to treat it or to talking with you about your cancer was slightly different to your mum's approach. Obviously, your mum must have been going through her own battle, but it was your auntie that said to you, visualize your cancer and create a bomb in your head and explode your cancer with your own bomb. So, do you think that positive thinking then is part of the treatment? Would you say?
I think definitely. I think if anything, it's the main part of treatment. If you, I went through it myself. There was I think a week or two where I just shut down, and my brain just kind of thought, I can't do this anymore. And for about 2 weeks, I would wake up and I would just stare at the wall for the whole entire day. I wouldn't eat anything. And I wouldn't even avert my eyes to the side. My auntie used to jump up and down at the door, trying to get me to look at her. But I wouldn't look because in my brain I had just shut down. So even though the chemotherapy was going through and doing its job and tried to kill the cancer cells, in my head I had shut down. So really, in order to survive, you need to stay positive within your brain and fight it within your brain as well. So you need to give cancer like this face or this image in your head, so you know what you're fighting and that you can fight it within yourself as well.
So, Adrian, Bev's mentioned then the fact that these bombs that she was creating in her head to explode or dispose of the cancer is part of the reason why that visually would be nice for an animation.
Sure.
So can you tell us then about the story presenting side of Bev's story?
Well, first of all, what a great piece of imagery, isn't it? I just imagine it.
You can
bombs going
picture
down
it.
your leg and exploding the cancer, and that was so powerful to me. We don't really like that word, so that's why we called it the B game. That name might actually change, but at the moment it is the B game. And I just said to myself, wow, we've got to put this down. Like I said, Bev already had the story, and it was just my job as a professional writer to help her coax that out. And it's the kind of story you read and I don't think you'll get it straight away, but then you're not meant to. It's for people that have actually suffered, and I haven't had to go through that battle, and I hope I never do. Bev obviously has, so it was a great kind of relationship in terms of there's myself that wasn't as personal to that terrible disease, and Bev who suffered and beat that terrible disease twice, and basically it was just getting that story out and making it something that you'll connect to, but maybe you'll have to watch it a few times, or certainly reading it on the page. It's not like I say, it's not quite linear. It's quite random. You're not quite sure what you're reading, but within it, cancer definitely has a face. The characters, it's a little boy, little kids, and they're going through this mental battle. And as Bev says, it's so important because of course we've got all the chemotherapy, radiotherapy. I'm learning a bit of the cancer vernacular by talking to Bev, but. My job was just as a storyteller, how do we turn this into something that is about 15 minutes, so it's a short, and to keep it brief, because Bev wanted to go into a lot of other areas, and I said, look, we have to pull it back, but at the same time, we can't lose her vision, because I don't know her vision, I can only listen to what she has to say and kind of go with her, and then the great thing is that she trusts me back to put that down. But that was the main image that got me, that imagery of sending bombs down someone's leg and exploding it. It's very powerful.
It is a really powerful image, and we're going to play a little bit of music now. You are listening to Colourful. I have Bev Wilson on the phone line telling us about her experience with cancer at just the age of 13 and 16, and then turning her story into an animation with the help of Adrian Scott, who is in the studio with me. If you have any questions before I let both go at midday, then please do feel free to email, text, or of course give us a call. You're listening to Colourful. I still have on the phone line Bev Wilson, and in the studio Adrian Scott, telling us all about the B Game, an animation based on Bev's true story of experiencing cancer at the age of just 13 and then having again a diagnosis at the age of 16. Hello Adrian, hello Bev.
Hello.
Hello. So you've been telling us then about the fact that the story is being put into an animation. So as it is an animation, my initial reaction is that it's a story that you're telling for younger people. But these days we see lots of cartoons. I'm thinking Family Guy, South Park, adult-based animations.
Not like
No. But who is the audience for the B Game? Adrian, perhaps you want to...
Bev. I'll pass it on to Bev because
it's her story.
Yeah, it's her story.
Primarily, I would like to be aimed at teenagers. Just simply because I was a teenager when I was diagnosed, and all the stresses and strains having cancer can put on school life, and if you're a boy, introduced into girls and vice versa. And I know I did struggle at the age of 13 and 16 having no hair. I did get bullied a lot by a lot of boys, and once that's on, it's just really terrible because I think people didn't understand what cancer was about. So I think it's really important for, especially that kind of stage of bullying or of not understanding as a teenager, that they are aware that teenagers do get cancer, and this is how they look, and this is what they're going through mentally themselves, to try and at least be supportive towards what they are going through. So I think primarily it's aimed at teenagers. I would say maybe the younger age wouldn't get the animation, with it being based on the whole mental process. But I mean, it's for families who have a child going through cancer to maybe try and understand what their brain is going through at the same time. Because I think in society there's a lot of films or understanding of chemotherapy or the treatment you receive or hospitals, but there's no understanding of the actual person and what they're going through inside their brain and things. So
I think that's such a good point. And again, we've been talking about normalising things for younger children on the show earlier today. So just understanding that if there is another child in school who is ill, that obviously bullying isn't the thing to do. So by letting your story or that individual's side of the story come across, I think is so important. Adrian, let's get some final words then on you as writing on behalf of Beverley and how it's been for you and what you've learned.
I love writing. That's what I do, and this has been great because I'm introduced to another world, and Bev's such a positive person, and she's a mother of 2 kids, and it's testament to her. She's survived, she's beat this disease twice, but there's friends that didn't survive, and you go onto our website www.mellow9productions.co.uk. You can read her story, and we got a lot to do. There's a lot of people helping, thank God there's a lot of people that they want to get involved. There's Lucy who's helping us, and from Jimmy Cheens, and a lot of people. We're going to be going on justgiving.com doing an appeal video because we're raising funds. It's not going to be easy. There's no funding for animation, but we're going for it. So
fantastic.
It's going to be great. I just want to say Bev is very orange in this studio.
Bev, just very quickly, thank you so much, Bev, for coming on the phone line today and telling us all about your story. And,
no, that's fine. It's been wonderful.
And, I'm sure that something really positive will come out of it.
It will.
And
it already has.
To both Bev and Adrian in the studio, when the animation is ready to go, then it'll be great to speak with both of you again. But for now, thank you so much for talking to us on Colourful. You're welcome back anytime.
Thanks. Keep
Thank you very much for having us.
Pleasure.
Thank you.